right. Hannah, it's all yours.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hannah Bonecutter, and today I'll be presenting on Unlocking Opportunities, Masterclass on Fellowships. And I know you all are students at the wonderful UIC School of Public Health, and I was just in your seats not too long ago, less than 2 years ago. So I'm very excited to speak with you today, and thank you so much, UIC SPH, for having me. So of course, I'm going to give you an agenda for what we're kind of going to go over today, a little bit about me and my background, my life mission and goals, my opportunities that have shaped my professional journey, and the skills and attributes I've gained from that, some preparation tips and advice for fellowships in general, and then the PMF Fellowship, Presidential Management Fellowship deeper dive, things I wish I knew before I applied and along the application process, and then balance, an inspirational quote, and finally we'll end with some questions and answers that you may have and hopefully I can answer. So about me, you'll see some pictures and hopefully getting a sense of diversity. I grew up in Chicagoland area, Oak Park, which I'm sure several of you are familiar with, right next to the west side of Chicago. And in particular, for those that may be more familiar, because I know I'm speaking to Chicago crowd, North Avenue, Big Street, and then Narragansett, which is also a major street in Chicago. So right off of that corner, I grew up for most of my life. And in a very, Oak Park is extremely diverse, as is Chicago, but it can be quite segregated, as I'm sure we know. But Oak Park has immense diversity in its population with socioeconomic backgrounds, linguistic backgrounds, ethnicity, race, and much more. And so that's something that I think really shaped me in terms of my region that I grew up in, as well as within my household. I grew up in a blended family, and that really allowed me to have a lot of different cultural exposures with diversity. Went to public schools my whole life, and of course, UIC, public college. Highly involved. You can kind of see pictures of travel. Absolutely love to do that. And that's kind of the global community, but then stayed involved in the Chicagoland and local community as well, particularly with my church, which kind of delves into some of my interests, definitely rooted in my faith. And with my church, I often did community work, such as, I know Thanksgiving just passed, giving out turkeys. I would help make meals too at our church kitchen for the homeless, oftentimes, as well as certain mission trips in the United States. So definitely, again, which expanded my idea and notion of diversity. And I think that's really important, and well-roundedness. So that's a bit about my upbringing, and very much caring about family as well. And then jumping into career diversity. So kind of way from the beginning to now. As you can see, I'm an educator, an artist, and a professional organizer with my own business entitled Bonecutter. We organize to the bone, and that's my entrepreneurship. And particularly within filmmaking, within artistry, I've served several different roles in that, including executive producer, writer, actress, set designer, hairstylist. And I started as an actress, but then kind of stepped behind the camera, not actually holding the camera, but behind the camera in terms of the vision and kind of the writer and executive producer role, and have made some of my own films to date, which have even won awards at various film festivals worldwide. And so that's been really, really exciting. And again, kind of on that theme of diversity and well-roundedness, you'll see then artistry and professional organizing, maybe those are kind of contrasting. But I'm definitely a person that believes and walks in shining in all of our colors fearlessly. And we are very complex and diverse individuals inside, like internally alone. And so I definitely believe that that we're meant to shine in all those capacities. And so I've kind of done so as best as I can. And I've absolutely loved teaching, particularly in Chicago, at many different places. And this is one of my classrooms. And kind of in this, and I'll jump to the next, career diversity, of course, public health, right? I got the Master's of Public Health at UIC. And those are my, I had the Health Disparities Research Certificate, which some of you all may be pursuing now, as well as the Global Health Concentration. And then Health Policy and Administration was my division. And, you'll also see then with the PMF, and just kind of some of the stuff I do currently with my PMF, with the VA, and I'll jump back to that in terms of the CDC, and then public speaking. And I want to highlight again, shining in all of your colors. A wise friend of mine once told me, don't ever let them put you in a box until you are actually in a box in the ground. And so I completely agree with that, and emphasize not allowing society, authorities, even family, however, to kind of close you in or silo you to just one or two careers, hobbies, however it may be. So yeah, but these are some of the careers that I've been blessed to be able to build and grow in over the years. And so bringing us to my mission in life is to be a light of exposure and inspiration. And this can absolutely be done in a myriad of ways across multiple different career paths. And I like to believe and hope that I'm doing that each and every day in each of my career paths, and in all of my engagements as well, with humans, nature, and more. And I just love that picture, don't you? So yes, and I think also it's important that, and I know life is a complete journey, never ends, but to kind of, as we think about what we're doing, especially in public health, what our mission is, our professional, personal identity mission is in life. And so the ultimate goal, speaking professionally, and I know you guys are all furthering your professional skills and building on your professional journeys, getting your degrees in public health. There's an ultimate goal, at least I have one. And when you look at this, I want you to think about what you're seeing and add these two together. Feel free to write in the chat. I can't quite see, but what you might think this is saying. I hope you might enjoy some puzzles, but mind games. But hopefully it's somewhat of a trail, right? In the beginning, a pathway. And then I know we see fire, heat, hot, fires blaze. So trailblazing is my ultimate goal. And in doing that, I envision me trailblazing a new industry. And that's not quite here yet. And this industry has its foundation in education. But its mission is intertwined with entertainment and public health. And so it's essentially, for me, it utilizes kind of my different careers and diversity in those paths, as well as skills and talents and abilities that I've been able to attain to do that. And of course, trailblazing takes an immense amount of organization. And so that's where Bonecutterizing would come in. So yeah, but that's definitely driving me and keeping me going. And I'm excited to continue developing this trailblazing path. But again, to that point of the box, trailblazers are definitely never contained in a box. So I think that's important. And in terms of with this trailblazing goal, as well as just, again, the day-to-day work that I do, the people and communities that I'm most passionate to work with and positively impact have been marginalized and historically oppressed, population groups, and to name a few, African Americans, particularly Black women, immigrants, and impoverished people, and orphans in particular, here in America, as well as in other countries and places in the world. All right. So once again, an image puzzle. We're going to delve into opportunities that have shaped my professional journey. And again, I'm curious to learn what you see when you look at this. Again, feel free to put your answers in the chat. But I will share that when I see this, I see something beautiful and wonderful, being the plants, coming out of some of the worst conditions, like hard, cold gravel and cement. And while it doesn't seem like that should be possible, it's happening. And that, to me, is possible, not just with plants, but with nearly any living organism, namely us, as long as kind of those opportunities are there along the way to help it grow, to achieve that. So that's the connection there. And I just love that. And also Tupac definitely has some lyrics related to this type of imagery. So if you guys are fans of Tupac. All right, so community involvement and volunteerism. I touched on that a little bit, but that definitely has continued with me to this day, probably always will be with me. Shortly after my undergrad degree, which is where education started, and we'll touch on that in a little bit, I got into various nonprofit organizations here in Chicago, some that have local scope and reach, some statewide, and some international. For example, Women's Global Education Project, which for those of you that have maybe are doing the global health concentration or have global health pursuits, that's a wonderful nonprofit to potentially work with, maybe do your APE with, and just get involved. But serving with these various nonprofits in as members of associate boards or leadership committees, and then growing in my leadership with those, eventually, like for some with Home, becoming the chair of the silent auction and annual celebration at a ripe age of 24, right? And these, the experience that you get is fantastic. And it's, what's really nice about it is you don't have the pressure in terms of you're not fully employed with that organization. So you have a lot less pressure on you, but you still, of course, execute to the best of your ability. And again, the skills and what you're exposed to in terms of how organizations run was really great for me, and seeing that up close and at a younger age. And then international volunteerism, I definitely believe that there is no education and exposure like immersing yourself in a whole other country, culture, place in the world. It changes you in some great and unique ways, I think, for the most part. And so I've been blessed to be able to do that with different organizations. I've taught in India various subjects, built latrines, which are also toilets, in El Salvador, done some job coaching in Madagascar, and the memories that I have from these are still burning bright. So, and then there's other distinct kind of events that have happened through my various volunteerism, including in particular the climate change rally, which is annually in all of our US major cities, but hopefully you guys have been to one with in Chicago, but that one I went to when I was a student at UIC, and just phenomenal and super relevant, right? So yeah, and also the relationships that you build through volunteering is outstanding, and again, shape you, and likely will offer many other unforeseen opportunities. Jumping to undergrad, the diversity and involvements did not stop. And again, I'll let you kind of read over and see some of the images, but definitely with extracurriculars, being involved in the student clubs, and organizations, which I'm sure you all are here at UIC, and learning to lead in those. Performer, I did various multicultural dance performances, some stage performances with spoken word, as well as emceeing various events, which was really fun. And some of the very grand lecture halls, as you can see, I went to U of I, Urbana, Champaign, sorry, UIC, both are outstanding, and they're the same university. But yes, I went there in Champaign, and greatly enjoyed it. And definitely learned a lot, with volunteering too. I did some regional, let's say, projects, like in East St. Louis, and I definitely encourage, I know UIC also offers a lot of opportunities for its students to be involved in the community and volunteer, and it was phenomenal. Lifelong friendships and relationships. Still don't necessarily keep in touch with regularly, but professors, which I highly encourage, especially in grad school. But I, of course, definitely did have challenges. I had to take a leave of absence. I was ill for part of the time, and adjusting to being on a Big Ten college campus, I didn't feel I was fully prepared for, which some things you can't fully prepare for in life, but it did take me for a bit of a swing, but made it through and accomplished the goal of graduating with that. Yes, and I'll say with the Teach for America, that's what kind of got me into education, and several of my career paths that you now know of were not my personal preference per se, but again, you may recall, a big part of my identity is my faith, and I'm pretty rooted in it. Identify as a Christian woman, and it was more so me following the path that I believed God was telling me to walk on. And so with the Teach for America, I just mentioned, you see that there, I was invited to serve as a delegate for Teach for America's first ever Rising Leader Summit in Washington, D.C., where I currently live. And this was at the end of my sophomore year, and I basically had to represent the entire U of I alongside top students from the top universities, namely Ivy League schools in the USA. And they paid for everything, and it was coupled with TFA's 20th anniversary. And people such as John Legend were there, major politicians, and many others. President Barack Obama, at the time president, spoke to us through live stream, and I was very overwhelmed in the best kind of way. And I also felt imposter syndrome, which I was not able to articulate at that time until I got into my master's program, which I'm very happy that I can now and thankful. But, that was an outstanding opportunity that then led me realizing, oh, you're being called to education. And at that summit is when I really learned about the inequities within our education system, and how much that shapes us and our opportunities, but also kind of the societal factors that shape it. And so when I came back, I knew I needed to get the bachelor's of science in education. But again, linking back to these opportunities that shape us, and just, you never know what may be offered or put on your plate, and seizing the opportunity is imperative. Yes. Graduate degree, which you all know about. You guys know all about UIC. Similarly, in terms of just graduate school in general, I was never sold on it. You guys know how much it can cost. And I did not want to be in debt for many, many years, as I was seeing several of my peers go through. But upon applying, it was made clear to me that I need to be getting my MPH from UIC, because I was offered a scholarship upon applying that I really wasn't even aware of, that took a substantial amount of financial burden off of me. And again, following that clear path, but seizing that opportunity. And it shaped me so much, my master's of public health. And because of it, I'm now a public health professional, as you are in the making. And again, you'll see extracurriculars. One of those pictures reflects the matriculation program at the School of Public Health, that the pre-matriculation program, PMP, I think for short, in the summer before you start your master's. And that was really key for me in exposing me to a lot of the concepts that would be always built upon in my 2-year MPH program, that gave me truly a leg up. And I know without me doing that program, I would not have done so well academically speaking. And so I'm really thankful. That was actually my first exposure to epidemiology. And we all know how tough that first class of epi is. So I'm so thankful. MASAF, BGSA were great student orgs, the Health Professional Student Council, HPSC, that I held various leadership roles in and served as a representative. Absolutely love that. I hope you all are taking advantage of the APHA annual meeting conference, and you can get a scholarship to go to. That was one of my highlights from my graduate degree, and a huge shaping experience for me that took me a whole nother level into conferences and health conferences and how much you can learn in those spaces. Absolutely loved it. And then research, right? And URC is a huge research community, but you'll see one of my research posters there, from our study that we had to do in the epi class. Just learn so much, and research is so key, and evidence-based anything, policies, plans, all of that. So yeah, and I also worked, of course, at UIC. I worked at the College of Dentistry as a student worker, a graduate student worker in their Office of Student and Diversity Affairs, so administration. And I actually was then offered and kept that job right as I graduated, which was nice because I didn't have to scramble to try to find a full-time position right when I graduated while trying to finish that capstone project. So really appreciated that. And again, opportunity. Pay attention to those SPH blasts, views blasts, and job boards, UIC job boards. All right. Which brings me to employment. And as you will see, that job at UIC COD is there for graduate school and beyond. A lot of my various careers are here. What you may not know, remember I said I love swimming and the beach. I've always been in the water, was a lifeguard and a swim instructor prior to college. And of course, babysat. Been working since I was 11, multiple jobs. Then teaching, filmmaking, which is certainly a job. Have not made money per se from my films directly. I presented on them, but that was never the goal with those. Clients with Bonecutter, and again, you'll kind of see the timeline, but we all have to put food on our plate. So, but again, in all these employment capacities and experiences, I've gained so much, and they've contributed to my growth and my journey as a professional. And I hope that yours are too. That's what it should be. So, and you learn things to do and not to do. And so these are some of the skills and attributes that I've gained through all those key experiences and opportunities in my life, employment, volunteer, all that. And you'll notice that some of them are more specific skills and kind of more technical skills, and others are more intangible and interpersonal skills, and all are very important to the professional workspace and growing and maturing as an individual. And particularly, I mean, you'll see some of these kind of common words that I'm sure you're drowned in currently with your studies, although I'm sure you just finished finals, but project management, kind of with your research studies, your research in general competencies, public speaking and presentation when you've had to present in your many group projects, I'm sure, critical thinking and policy analysis, right? These are these kind of public health centered ones and more technical hard skills. But then definitely through these experiences and the challenges that I've had with illnesses, family things, and much more, growing in my empathy and cultural competencies, which is key, as well as resiliency. And that's helped me sustain and maintain and continue to proceed in these various ways. And I would also want to just highlight again with the nonprofit, because there's really no shortage of nonprofit opportunities to be involved in. And all of those was very apparent collaboration in project management and fundraising, which in the private sector is very key, but super great to build those. That's a super great area to build those skills on a regular basis. And cultural competencies really was deepened in very unique ways, again, with some of my international volunteerism and experiences. We can read as many articles and books as we want. There's still nothing like being immersed in another place and culture in the world. So yeah, these are some of them, and I hope that you're gaining many of these. I'm sure, I know you are, in your programs in public health. So now delving into the fellowship application tips. Read the instructions. That's obvious, I'm sure, but super carefully. You know what best helps you to remember things, whatever it is. Do that for these instructions. I would say basically act like it's a test. If you're the kind of person that needs that physical textbook and you like to annotate with a highlighter or a pen on that, do that with these instructions. And some of the instructions for these applications for fellowships are 50 pages long. That's how long the PMF one was for me when I applied. And I annotated the heck out of it with highlights on my computer. And wrote down notes on another piece of paper. I highly recommend that. And create your to-do list based on what is in the instructions. And then with that, getting organized in general with the materials. Maybe you need references, you need writing samples. Get that organized, whether it's physically or digitally. Make sure it's all there well ahead of time. And have it align with your calendar and with the key data or timeline points that the application states. Make sure that's in your calendars, whether your calendars are written or online or both. I will also say narrow down your top choices, because again, and we'll jump into some of these other steps, some kind of details for them, but narrow down your choices. You can't apply to every fellowship. And a lot of times fellowships, great fellowships, again, it's going to be quite a process, an elephant to eat, so to speak. So find the ones that best align with you, your goals personally and professionally, and that you think you might be most competitive and best for. With the highlighting specific parts of you, make sure that's clear in the cover letter and it's aligned with the key points that are maybe bolded even in the application. But in other areas, because the cover letter can only be so long, highlight all of you in terms of all of your colors, right? Because you never know who may be on the other side reviewing your application and what part of you speaks to them, and then gives you that vantage point over other applicants, right? So include that. And if you haven't been creating your CV since, dating back to your activities in high school, make sure you do that, especially for fellowships. Triple check your application, just like you would hopefully do with a paper, a final project that you have to submit. Have others look over it, and maybe even others of your peers that are applying for the same fellowship, because they're going to be in the exact same mindset as you. And hopefully they have the best intentions in looking it over. So, but definitely friends, family, all that, if you can. And super important, don't ruminate. Once you're done, you're done. Don't let it stress you in your mind. Don't circumvent on, oh my gosh, I think I forgot this part. Oh man, I wish I could redo. It's done. And if you get it, great. If you don't, great. What's for you is for you. And if you don't get it, it's not an indicator of any less value or worthiness of yourself. And I think that's really important, especially for some of these to know and to know and never forget, for some of these more perhaps prestigious fellowships that you'll come across, especially as a public health professional. So tips for the interviews. And mind you, the interviews may come across at various times, and some of these fellowships have the application process have multiple rounds of interviews. So it just depends what that particular fellowship process is. But regardless of how many you do, and if they're panel or individual or scenario based, solve this problem in 20 minutes, these are some key tips to do. And so I'll kind of highlight a couple. In terms of the common questions, go ahead and Google some of those. And I would say keep a running document of them and know your answers to them. Write them out, type them out, and practice them. Some of them include, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Why do you think you're suited for this position? Why do you want to work in this position or this fellowship organization? What do you have to contribute to our mission? What would other people say about you? Or what have other people said about you in your past jobs and work positions? Know your answers for those. Those are, you can usually count on at least one of them being asked. The STAR method, also known as CCAR, that's C and then the word CAR, especially in the federal government. I learned this in interviewing with different agencies for the PMF application process. And I actually learned it in a webinar for federal positions, how to interview for federal government positions. And it's exactly as it says: situation, task, action, resolution, result. Essentially, you're telling a story, right? And a story has a beginning, climax, /problem, and /resolution. Make sure to be clear in telling your story and drive home that resolution. All the interviewers want to know what you did and how it solved the problem. Make sure you answer the question, preferably using the STAR method. But I just want to give you an example. And now I've since been on the other end of interviewing and actually being the hirer and sitting in during panel interviews and whatnot with applicants and candidates. And know the question, and part of knowing it is if you writing the components down that you have to answer and address. And if you need to take a pause to do that, do it. Nothing wrong with that. I'll never forget, there was a question, it was two-part, but the first part was, please rate your writing on a scale from 1 to 10. More than half of the candidates did not answer that. That means they lost half the points on that question. Answering it would have been simply saying your number, ranking 9, 8.5, 10. You would have got the points. So sometimes you can get caught up in the moment and forget, but take that time to write, to know exactly what all the components are of the question and answer it fully. Do your best not to use filler words. That's difficult many times, but do your best because people will hear it and take note of it. And then always have questions for them. I want to highlight that part because hopefully there will be time. There should be time for you to ask. And if there's not, you can always send in your follow-up email, say at the end, actually ask, if there's no time, say, can I please email you some questions that I may have? Hopefully they're open to that. And if so, always have those ready. And there are some generic questions such as, what is your favorite part? Or what has your favorite part been of working in your blah, blah, blah position at blah, blah, blah? That allow you to gain a lot of great information for you in terms of making a decision if this is the right place for you, as well as gives them something to chew on and provide to you. And a lot of times the interviewers are really happy to do that and also look for you to have some questions. Great to have specific questions on maybe what is that organization's current projects, et cetera. But there are some generic ones that you can have ready to go for any interview with any organization, for any fellowship, job, and more. So particularly the PMF, and maybe some of you have been to, I know sometimes they have on college campuses PMF informational sessions with some personnel from the OPM, Office of Personnel Management with the government, which is what the PMF is housed under. But here's some key components to the PMF. You know, it's the government's flagship leadership development program for advanced degree holders, master's and above, JD, MD, DMD, PhD, established over 45 years ago. And I'm pretty sure, I know past US presidents have done it. It used to be called the Presidential Management Internship, the PMI. And I believe Barack Obama did it as well. What's funny, I learned this year working at the Veterans Affairs is that the current secretary of the VA was a PMI himself. And he used to work much more closely with Barack Obama when he was president, but he was a PMI. So that's pretty funny and cool. And also I know with the PMF currently I'm with the VA, but I had CDC up there before, and I forget if I touched on it. I think I didn't. So I want to just mention which links to a key component of the PMF. You do a rotation. The fellowship lasts 2 years and you're with one agency, but you do a rotation very likely with a different agency. Could be with a different part of your current agency, but with a different agency for 4 to 6 months. And I'm doing mine with the CDC, with their Eastern Europe and Central Asia regional office in their Global Health Center. And so that will be abroad in the country of Georgia. In surrounding areas and capitals over there. So very excited for that starting in January. But that's another key component of the PMF that they include to give you another perspective and great experience and opportunity to meet other federal government professionals outside of your main agency or department. So that's really cool. It definitely, you get used to the political space and how politics shape so much of federal government work. Is very interesting, very different than learning about it versus being immersed in it. Key gains, definitely problem solving, networking, and it sets you up for a long-lasting career in federal government. The website is extremely thorough. I do recommend going to it, and I'm happy to share that and put that in the chat at the end if you're not familiar. You can also just Google Presidential Management Fellowship. It should pop right up there. And now you know about it. Please feel free to tell your peers if they are not aware. For me, how I heard about it, a professor at UIC emailed me directly and strongly recommended that I apply. I didn't at the time that she did, because she kind of did that the day before the application was due. And I told you how long that application handbook was, right? So I didn't want to turn in anything bogus, below standard. And I also wanted to focus on my classes so that I could pass. So I waited until after I graduated, and I kind of left it out of my mind. And then recruiters reached out to me from the PMF program on Handshake, which I'm sure you're familiar with that platform as UIC students. So be on the lookout just in terms of the PMF recruitment from OPM personnel on Handshake, but also fellowship recruitment in general on platforms like Handshake, LinkedIn. If they want you, they'll find you on there. And so then that kind of put it back in my mind, and I then had the necessary time to adequately prepare and applied right after I graduated in that summer. Things I wish I knew. Different agencies do really different things in terms of the application. They're supposed to follow kind of the standard, and there's a whole portal, and they post a position. You apply through the portal. You also sometimes have to apply on USA Jobs. This is, again, particularly with the PMF. But some agencies do things a little out of order, may not really post it fully on TMS, but just reach out to you via email, etc. Some may even have a Google form. So be prepared. And it's definitely a marathon. It's quite emotional. I definitely cried several times. I was very frustrated. I had to pull quite crazy hours. I was working really overtime because I was doing consulting work in addition to my full time. And it's a lot. So prepare yourself, have your necessary support systems and nutrients to apply, not just against the PMF, but to any probably fellowship. And the PMF is a year or more longer, the process. So again, marathon, long. HR can take a long time. You could get a position quick, but again, federal government, things are very bureaucratic and long. So you may start 6 months after you're offered, 6 months later after you're offered the position. I touched on the political environment, and while there's definitely, I'm sure all of us have experienced competitiveness to a certain extent, whether it's in school or organizations or sports that we're in, sports clubs, but there's a different atmosphere of competitiveness within, at least for me, within the federal government political space, I would say. And, sometimes it's with colleagues, and sometimes it's even with other PMFs. And so just be aware of that and know that one thing I was told out the gate when I came to the VA in Washington, D.C. is all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And so, and I did observe some things that reflect that. So just be aware of that, and you'll learn how to navigate that best. But amazing opportunities. I wish I also knew how much, although I think I caught on quick early, but I'm telling you now so that you may be posted or put as in a specific role, program management analyst, however, but and it may not be using like your creative skills or your artistry skills or whatever the case may be, like for me, but you can find that at your agency and or create that space and then be innovative and add that to the projects. So, and volunteers to assist with projects that may not exactly be in your exact office or exact team, but if you have capacity to assist, do it. It's going to just broaden your network, broaden your experience, and probably lead to other amazing opportunities, right? So, but you want to make sure you're being fully utilized in these types of outstanding fellowships. And yeah, it really is a gold star pass with the PMF when you when you get with the agency, a lot of people that have been with federal government, and even in Washington, D.C., just so many people knew about the PMF. In Chicago, not barely anybody knew when I was telling people about it. But they understand kind of the positive weight that comes with it. And that's pretty cool. And I mentioned the rotation. All right. And make your mark in those opportunities. I want to just touch on, as I said, balance. And all this that I've been able to experience, take advantage of opportunities and more, and the blessings, really, I've grown in my understanding and prioritization of balance. And it's so, so key. And I'm sure, I know there's resiliency efforts at UIC, and SPH does great kind of community relaxing events so that help contribute to your balance as students. I hope that you're doing everything in your power to do that as well. These are some of the ways I keep balance for me. And my body, with certain illnesses, when my body wants to get sick, it gets sick. It gets like surgery sick, hospital sick, emergency room. And so that has also shaped me, not just in building resiliency, but informing me how much I need to be proactive in keeping my balance and getting my adequate rest and nutrition, and having those things that make me smile and laugh as much as possible. So I hope, some of this may resonate with you. Y'all are public health. You know all about health stuff. But always a good reminder for us. And I want to kind of leave us on, so I'm spoken word poet. That's one of my artistry things, as you saw. So I absolutely love quotes. And this is one of my favorite ones of all time. And it says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. By Marianne Williamson, and you may have heard it in other capacities. Absolutely believe that. I walk in it as much as possible each and every day, and shining bright in all of our colors fearlessly is key. I want to thank you so much. I hope that you gained so much knowledge, insight, at least a few things that maybe you did not know prior. Feel free to scan that and connect with me on various social medias, etc. That's my link tree, has my websites, all of that. And if you scroll to the bottom, our social medias, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. So please feel free to connect there, and any further questions that you may have, please ask. And I can also put my email in the chat if you'd like, but definitely connect that way, and more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.